This is Comic Picks by the Glick.
Hey, I'm your host, Jason Glick.
Hey, Jason Glick, what's going on, man?
Hey, John, it's going pretty good. How about yourself?
It's going great.
That's good to hear, man, because I am glad to be here talking about this series because, man, there was like a point when I was worried that, it was not going to be completed at all. It's like, because this is All Rounder Meguru by Hiroki Endo. And, as longtime listeners, readers of, my podcast and blog will know, I really, really liked his series, Eden It's an Endless World, that Dark Horse was publishing, like, for a somewhat consistent period back in the aughts. And eventually, but because no one actually bought that series, they stopped with Volume 14. And, that was thoroughly disappointing. And, I'm I wish that, at some point they'll get back to, publishing the series, or at the very least acknowledging that nope, we're not going to do it again. And if someone wants to like publish the series again, we'll let them go with what they're doing. But that hasn't happened yet. But Kodansha, however, decided to start publishing his like Endo's subsequent series, All Rounder Meguru. It's like afterwards. It's like, and it's like I realized that they probably they have realized that, oh wow, it's like Dark Horse's publication of Eden is in this world, you have set the sales charts on fire, but we're gonna do his MMA series. It's like, and we're gonna publish it and see how that goes. Well, as far as that goes, it turns out that posting this series digitally did all right by them. And it's like I am not really an MMA type person, but when hey, you tell me that, hey, the guy who did Eden Incident of the Swirl is doing a new manga series. It's like I am gonna be there from ground one. It's like, and yeah, it's like, and well, initially the series was published like 3 volumes on a monthly basis, and then things got sketchy from there. But then eventually solidified in a bi-monthly basis, which is how we've got to the final volume, like several weeks ago at the beginning of March. Well, I am glad to be talking about the finale of this series as it goes. And it also turns out that, well, it's like we've actually got someone on our crew who is actually familiar with MMA, because, well, my experience with MMA basically kind of begins and ends with this series. So hey Myron, it's like,
Hey,
how
how's it
you doing,
going?
man?
Oh, doing great today. How you guys doing?
Yeah, it's like I'm glad you're here, because I mean, because when I'm talking about an MMA series, I mean, my experience with the series basically begins and ends with the fact that, hey, it's from the guy who did It's an Endless World. But I mean, you actually sat down and read the first volume after I asked you to I guess talk about this, because I mean, this is even dealing with a specific form of MMA called Shuto, which is not, I mean, maybe not specifically detailed to Japan, but how does it work and all?
Well, I mean, it's from reading this volume. Shuto is a mixed martial arts, and that's the core of MMA. And so you know when to make yourself more versatile and a more competitive fighter. I mean, you definitely want to um, broaden your skill sets. I mean, there are different fighters that I've seen watching UFC and different MMA pay-per-views where they have stronger backgrounds in certain style, like Brazilian jiu-jitsu or wrestling, striking. And from reading this first volume, I was thoroughly surprised on like the detail of the background that they cover when training, and the different people's weight classes. Like, I know you described this to me originally, that it's more of a sports manga instead of like a frivolous fight manga like your Dragon Ball and Naruto's and stuff like that. Which not disrespecting, because I prefer those shonen. animes as well, but I do love my sports animes too, like Slam Dunk being one of my favorites. And you can kind of tell like the author really really looked into the detail of this world of mixed martial arts. And from what you suggested to me reading the first volume, I mean, I was drawn in from the jump to see these two kids, Takashi and Meguru, practice, uh, this more defensive style karate, and the events that took place in Takashi's life kind of like spiraled him to dig deeper into getting stronger. And of course, Meguru had his own reasonings for wanting to get stronger as well. I mean, both of these kids are presented as, good friends. They've been bullied and want to stand up. So by the time we get to them as teenagers in high school, we see where they're at in their journey to becoming a stronger fighter. And I was, I kind of like this particular mechanic in certain stories where the once best friends are now rivals, or they're now enemies for whatever particular reason. Like their paths have separated. So we first see Meguru's first amateur match against his one-time good friend Takashi. And just from the jump, I could already tell like Meguru was going to get his ass beat, because we're presented, and this is one thing I didn't understand, like, Meguru seemed to be stronger with grappling, yet at a younger age, he's taken karate. So it's like, I don't know if he kind of like didn't start practicing his striking skills or kind of let that go. Because
it's like he and Takashi, like they're both like karatekas at heart. It's like we're interested in like them practicing like karate like as an art at the beginning.
Right. Yeah, as an art, not necessarily like as a defensive or for fighting, but still, like he still has that background when it came to striking, to where like I just didn't understand why he didn't like start using some of those techniques, because Takashi came through with his strikes and kept him at bay. And I love the detail that they that the author illustrated with their fighting, when they demonstrated that mid kick that could be pivoted by the knee to a higher kick. And I love how he illustrated that detail on how that mechanic works and how that technique works. And it was used in order to get the upper hand on Meguru in his first fight. So I could really tell, like, the author did his homework and really presented more of a sports perspective than just a pure action
Your shonen manga.
Correct. Yeah. And so like it was very interesting how that was presented. And one of the interesting facts that I particularly enjoyed in this volume is kind of seeing the training regimen. And so like after Meguru's first loss, he continues going to the gym to train, but then learns about a pro training session that happens later at night, putting in that extra work to become stronger. And I'm not sure if this is pertinent to different gyms within real MMA, but just kind of seeing some of the exercises that they've done in order to warm up before their major practice bouts. And I felt tired, with these guys, just kind of reading what they did. And so I really enjoyed like how they went really deep into their training regimen, because I can kind of see how that could build upper body strength, how that builds stamina and makes them a little bit more well-rounded in different abilities that they have to cover. And they did training exercises from like, takedowns and mounting positions, because, I watched quite a bit of MMA, and, I'm still kind of fuzzy on the point system, but, taking down an opponent and getting him in a position or hitting with certain strikes can land different amounts of points for the combatant. And so it was cool to kind of see how they practice in their session. Like, okay, we're gonna start at a top mount, or you're gonna take bottom mount, and you need to counter, or you need to get out of this particular position.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's like what like the like what the like what kind of point system, what kind of points the characters get, like in terms like like striking and grappling. It's like in terms of matches, like that's actually like something that like comes into play like really like significantly as far as the series goes. Like as it goes on, like when we get to like the tournament arcs as well. It's like and it's like it's like and the thing about Meguru is that he's kind of like initially he's presented as kind of like a just not anything special. I mean, the series is called All Rounder Meguru, but it's like I mean, yeah, it's about him, but you don't actually get like his like his special abilities like until until like a couple volumes in, when you find out that oh well, Meguru is actually, well, he's like it's like well he's got a certain competency like towards anime. Like he's actually really good at just like finding out about a move and then integrating it into his attack repertoire like on instinct.
And when you first brought this title up to me and we kind of started talking about it, I mean, just the title alone, All Rounder, gives me the impression that, further along the line, we go down this story, he's going to step up his game in a lot of different aspects of martial arts. Like, yeah, he's traditionally trained in karate, and his grappling is pretty good, but with each opponent he's going to be facing, in the amateur line, he's going to learn and incorporate different move sets and different styles. And I would presume by the end of the series, just become an all-rounded better fighter. And so, with real MMA, like, one of my favorite fighters right now that my buddy Angel got me into is Jorge Masvidal. And, he's trained in different styles of martial arts, but I've come to know him from his like street fighting videos. And like the first time I saw him in a UFC match, he knocked down a guy in 3 seconds. He just, like, right when the bell rang, he ran up and basically gave him a tiger knee to his face, and the match was over. And so, like, I think that veracity that he has comes from his his raw training, street fighting. And I think that as I'm reading this storyline too, I thought the same thing with Takashi, given his drive to get revenge for his father's death, against the Yakuza, he's going to have some real life, fighting experiences that can make him a better fighter or incorporate in his actual matches. And who knows if Meguru has to do the same as well.
There's a really good moment towards the end of the series when it's like when Takashi fights a guy that Meguru like basically like Meguru lost against this guy in a previous arc, even though it's like he basically like he kneed him to the face, but and it's like and even though he lost against fighting him on points, the guy couldn't continue like to fight against Takashi in the tournament they were in, because like Meguru had kneed him in the face, and like he was bleeding from this cut. So it's kind of like on one hand, like, but then when you get to the regionals, which is like the final like arc of the series, and then when Takashi finally gets to fight against this guy, he knocks his ass out in like 19 seconds. It's it's kind of like it's a really good example of like, hey, it's like this is what we're going up against, like the final arc here. It's like, hey, like, this is a guy who Meguru had trouble against, and Takashi knocks him out in like 19 seconds. It's like there's like, I mean, like Endo is like he's very well aware of like the standards of like the like the fighting arc tournament like standard for these kinds of series, but and he also knows a pretty good way how to play them as well. And it's like, and I think that's like one of the key things about the series as well, like that he's got like he's got a good understanding of how how this fighting is going to go, but at the same time, it's like like he's well aware of the conventions at the same time, especially since like Meguru, like his progression, it's like over the course of the series, is not a straight line. He's basically suffering against people who are like stronger against him. Like in the very first volume, like he like Takashi chokes him out, and then this other guy, this no namer, Komiyama, like knocks him out. Well, doesn't knock him out, but he just knocks him so that he's like Meguru is punch drunk, and he can't walk forward like normally. And it's like that's kind of like it's like he's like Meguru has to lose the match right there. But what I enjoy about the series is that Meguru is kind of presented as like a normal everyday character, like someone who like he could be you or me if we actually like, bothered to fight practice like this whole like MMA regimen or just any kind of martial arts regimen as well. And there's like lots of interesting like ways that his arc progresses. Just from the from the first volume where he gets choked up by his friend, gets almost knocked out by his buddy, and there's these people in his art club who think, hey, you practice MMA, that's cool, man. Like, why don't you come out and hang out with karaoke and play karaoke with us and all. So
that scene saddened me because I thought, you can kind of hear it in his voice, like, I'm popular now, and then the girl was only using him to get back at her boyfriend, and I was like, oh, that's cold blooded.
Yeah, but but it makes sense. And it kind of inspires and it also kind of inspires him to get back into like doing MMA normally. It's like, and it's also it provides like a nice like solid motivation for him to just compete in these like subsequent tournaments, because like we get to the when we get to volume 4, we get sort of the Kanto tournament, and like it's like he knocks out the first guy with an armbar. It's like he gets a rematch with this one guy he beat with an armbar in the previous, like in the previous tournament, and he knocks him out with like submission from his back. And then one of his teammates, or the guys from like the same gym that he's at, they're called Fighters Brew. Udai, it's like when he's training with him, like Meguru actually gets an armbar against this guy Udai, but he also like realizes that, wait a second, did I tear a tendon in his arm when he's doing this armbar? But Udai is kind of like this, like, oh man, it's like it's like I'm totally serious about this. It's like it's like you're just like not as in the same on the same level as I am. So it's kind of like he doesn't tell him that well, you actually like tore my ligament when you like got me in this armbar. So it's like we're seeing like Udai go through this tournament, like knowing that like, oh man, it's like he's got this injury, and then it's like, and then when Meguru finally learns about it, it's like what? Oh man, it's like it's like the series like does a good job like keeping things on a good like human like even keel here. So it's just like giving like making sure like all the characters like have like a good human reason for fighting against them, even when like he has to like break in the middle of a match to like talk about this character's backstory. Because I mean, this is something that like it's not something that's brought up like in the first volume, but later on it's like Endo will like break down during certain volumes to talk about like what this character's motivation is, who's fighting against Meguru, and sometimes like it's, I mean, it doesn't really like have the feeling that like, oh man, it's like I got to like like do some like narrative like resuscitation to like get you involved in this, but at the same time, like Endo is really good at this stuff to the point where it's like he's able to like give us this motivation for like what the character who's fighting against Meguru, like what his motivation is, and then like basically like give us a reason like why it's not just like this character isn't just like, oh, he's just like some guy fighting against our main character. It's like, and that's good. Like I like that. I mean, it's like sometimes it kind of slaps into formula, but more often than not, it's like I think that Endo does a good job giving us like a good reason why we should be invested like in this like other character's fight against Meguru for the most part.
Okay.
But overall, it's like I think that he does a good Endo does a great job like giving like a very realistic like portrayal of martial arts like in this series. And on one hand, I think that's cool, but at the same time, I also think that's probably why this series is like it's probably like not really well known like amongst most manga fans. It's, like suffice to say, sad to say, for lack of a better term. Myron, you got any thoughts about that? About how like realistic you thought the fighting was in the first volume?
Nothing more beyond what I said. Again, I was really impressed how like with each major match that were presented in volume 1, there is that level of progression on what needs to be done to get better. So obviously after Meguru's loss against Takashi, he realizes that, okay, he needs to become stronger and he needs to become better. And he's even had, nightmares about it. And so that's what like really entices him to, buckle down and go into the tougher training because, that first night, that first night, I remember he was kind of whining about like warm-ups, like this is a warm-up, like these are actual like exercises. But the more serious fighters, the more competitive fighters from this gym, Fighters Brew, like they're doing it like easy, because they do it all the time. And so I really thought that was awesome. Getting a glimpse on what exercises and what techniques that they do during their training regimen and how they practice, and how they're making themselves better. And we see like in the second match where Yudai Kitamura actually like wins his match, from that training regimen. And of course, as you mentioned before, Meguru, in this match, I saw him start to use strikes, which, after his first match, I kept complaining like, dude, why aren't you striking? Like, you need to kind of keep this, you need to keep him at bay and strike to kind of, get a little bit more read on this character. So we start to see him use more low strikes and get in with his opponent on this next match. And he actually is able to, get him to the ground, but then like he did this his opponent did this like feint punch where he psyched him out like he was going to grapple his lower leg, but then came with like a high upper hook, and that's the hook that knocked him down to the ground. And by the time he got up, he was discombobulated to where he couldn't move. He was wobbling to where the ref had to call the fight. And so that's another lesson right there, where like, okay, with each experience, with each fight, it goes back to what you said. I think he's going to learn newer techniques and newer counters to where he's going to be a more well-rounded fighter. And so I really liked that with each fight that we saw in volume 1, everyone is like learning new techniques and taking on new techniques with each experience, and just becoming a better fighter. Because even we see Takashi in this next fight have a little bit of trouble taking down his opponent so easily, but he ends up doing like this uppercut to upper knee reversal, which I thought was badass in that portrayal, and ends up taking the win. And so, yeah, I mean, the way I'm really a big wrestling fan, and so like I watch a lot of WWE and AEW. But a lot of those superstars within this organization, you know, they come from the MMA world, or we even see like wrestlers end up becoming trying to go into the MMA field too, like Brock Lesnar, who had a successful career with UFC, and even CM Punk of recent transfer to that genre. But you know, having that background in wrestling techniques while trying to learn newer techniques will give those fighters an edge in trying to compete within the MMA sport. And so I thought this anime, or this manga, I should say, did a really good portrayal, at least from volume one, on how training works, on how the matches work, and they actually like go deeper into like how actual matches are graded and how points are awarded. And so I really thought it was deep on how detailed the author captured that. And also too, I was intrigued by the human side of the story, like how we see Takashi's father as like a, you know, his home life, his father being like a Yakuza, like involved with the Yakuza, and his mother, you know, ran out on them, and his father gets murdered, and his whole drive is revenge. And so, you know, I kind of wanted to see a little bit more of that aspect as well being fleshed out, because obviously by the end of volume one, we find out the person he's trying to get revenge against has been murdered in prison. So with that, what is your drive now? What is your purpose? And so it'll be interesting to see how this character of Takashi grows in his journey, not only becoming a fighter, but you know, of you know, becoming a man. And also with Meguru, like I found it weird that Takashi even said, "I've always hated that guy," and it's like, why? I never got any indication from their childhood, like what would give him the cause to hate Meguru. So it would be interesting to see like how does that flesh out? Like, does that, you know, make them bitter rivals, or is it more or less like, you know, there's some type of like jealousy that Takashi's always had against Meguru, and eventually, you know, that kind of gets squashed out. Like, how serious is this hatred towards his, you know, one-time best friend?
Yeah, it's like that's the whole hatred thing isn't what really played up over the course of the series, because I think that that the mangaka like reframes it as more of a as like a difference of perspective as the series goes on. Because as the series goes on, it's like we get like certain like I mean most of it is just kind of like you know tournament fighting, you know, like it's who's going to be like the character like the character's next opponent like in whatever particular tournament that's going on. But we get certain like storylines that don't involve like tournament fighting when such as when Takashi has to like fight against some guys who are beating down his like one of his host coworkers like in an early arc back in volume 3 I believe. It's like it's like and then we also find out like much later like back in volume 3 volume 13 like at last when we find out like just why Meguru like you know started doing MMA in the first place. And then but before that we also find out just you know just kind of like you know what more about like you know Takashi's motivations for just like you know becoming strong and all. It's like and as the series goes on, it's like it's not really reframed until like, and this is like maybe it's kind of a failing of the series, but like it's not until like volume 18 when we get like a good reframing of the conflict between Takashi and Meguru. When we find out that that you know Meguru, it's like you know he's doing this because you know he has fun because like he views like MMA as kind of like a more like a vehicle towards self improvement, where Takashi like kind of like views it as kind of like a means to be becoming strong, and that if anything like his disdain towards Meguru like as far as like like why like I always hated that guy is more because like he like Meguru like never kind of went all out like back in the day. It's like that he was just like kind of someone who was just like in this to have fun. It's like and that in the end like the conflict between him and Meguru is all about what's the better like path in life. Is it better to pursue this form of martial arts to have fun, or is it to become strong?
So it's like the Goku Vegeta equation.
Yeah, that's a good way of phrasing it right there. It's like I will say that because of the more realistic take on martial arts, it's maybe the answer to that is maybe not the answer you're expecting, but it's probably the answer. It's probably the answer that makes sense more than anything else. But at the same time, though, it's like there's like a lot of good fights to be had over the course of the series. I mean, like the just watching Meguru like come up in the various tournaments is a lot of fun because maybe because like there's not like a solid path to like oh well what how is Meguru going to follow these things to become the best fighter, and because you kind of assume that because his name is in the title that oh he's going to be like the best guy and all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there's like a but because like it's we're doing a more realistic form of martial arts, like it's Meguru loses a lot more times than you'd expect like in this series, and on one hand it's like I can understand that, but at the same time it's like when he does win it's something that really feels earned and all, especially in like the mid volumes when they're in the Kansai arc when he's like fighting in a tournament down in that region, and he's fighting against this guy Keiji Mitsuha who was a former wrestler like not but he was disqualified due to fighting with dirty tricks, and now he's like turned his like focus towards Shuto, like Bigger's like this guy's like he's a former Olympic wrestler. How the hell am I supposed to beat this guy? It's like, and then like when you see them fight, I mean like Mitsuwa is like guys like he's got like this smug look to him that's kind of like oh man, it's like he's a huge dick, and he's how much of a dick is he? He's the kind of guy who will like get the like the top mount like on Meguru and then like get off him so that like hey I get the point, and like now that I've got the point I'm ahead of you, not just like I can just focus on just like beating the crap out of you like for the rest of the match, and seeing how like Meguru deals with the guy like that, I mean that's actually like that's really impressive because like like what happens with them is a kind of is like a it's a decision, but it's a decision that's like played out in the margins, and like I really enjoyed that, especially since it leads to Meguru fighting this old guy Muroi, who he's like he's like guy who's like he was a hellraiser as a kid, went to prison like for on a bullshit offense, but now he's fighting because he wants to like show his family like how strong he is, and I know Meguru has to like, beat this guy if he's going to win the Kansai qualifier. So there's lots of good moral ambiguity to a lot of the fights that Meguru does here. And like I really enjoyed like seeing like how this stuff is portrayed as the series goes. One thing I also really enjoyed as far as the series goes is that there is a romantic subplot in the series that is introduced when a kickboxer character Maki, who is introduced in volume 2, and like she's a total tsundere character, someone who was like outwardly it's like just like mean and it's like just and surly, but when you get to know her, she's also kind of like kind of has her own like sensitive side as well, and while she's just kind of like disdainful towards Meguru initially, it's like they eventually develop a good rapport when they're training together, and they also like give each other like some good like pointers as they're fighting together as well. And eventually, Maki realizes that she's in love with Meguru. Well, not really in love, but she's like totally crushing because they're both high school characters, and this is actually like fun because the series like kind of treats them as a total joke because like Meguru is like totally oblivious to Maki's feelings, and when Maki like talks about her feelings to her family, they're kind of like, oh, yeah, okay, so yeah, you like this guy, screw him, because that's how we go. It's like that, and that's it's like it's fun. It's like it's just fun seeing like like them treat like the series treat this like this the romantic subplot of the series as a huge joke, and it's a lot of fun. It's like and it's makes it as a real it makes this subplot like a lot less annoying than it could have been. It's like and I enjoyed that, and also like seeing Maki it's like develop her kickboxing style over the course of the series. It's pretty cool as well because like she gets some solid opponents as well, to the point where like she is a much more vicious fighter than Meguru, to the point where like at one point she gets disqualified in a match because she throws an elbow at her opponent, and that's
Wow.
like yeah, that's like outlawed in amateur shooto as well, because like one thing that's made like a explicitly clear in this series is that there's like a great difference between like amateur shooto and professional shooto, because there's no like elbow throwing and there's no ground pounding in here. It's like that's that, like I mean like I didn't know anything about like shooto beforehand or MMA really, but it's interesting. But they do a job. But Endo does a good job of like outlining the rules. It's like as like what's allowed and what's not, and especially like when you get to volume 13 and then the nationals begin, and it's basically like a 6-volume run to the final conflict, and like it's basically a like man, it's like you think like 6 volumes of like a tournament arc. Well, it's like it's like Endo has you covered there. I mean, he's got plans like how everything's going to turn out in terms of like what everyone's going to do there. It's like, and also with compared to like something like Slam Dunk, which like I believe like is an 8-volume like final arc. Like it's played out pretty well. It's like, and I think that like the various fights that Meguru undergoes like over the course of these this regional arc, it does a good job of like basically like setting things up to his final like confrontation with Takashi. It's like in fact like there's even a point where like he's not able to get the submission on one guy, and then it goes to the judges, and when it goes to the judges, it's a 30-30 tie. And so then they got to go to, okay, well we got to go to the split decision. It's like wow, it's like it's 2-1, and it's like, man, it's like because you're thinking like, okay, it's like you want to like build up Meguru as like like a credible fighter against like Takashi for this final fight, but man, it's like for him to get going to this final fight with like a 2-1 decision for him, man, it's like it's tough. But I will say that like writing about this in the next to last volume, it's like I think that I mean like Endo does a good job of like setting up Takashi as like, hey, don't want to bet against him. And as far as I guess like when we're getting like to the end here, it's like to the final volume. It's like guess what this podcast is all about. It's like the final round between Takashi and Meguru. It's like you kind of feel that okay, well, Meguru's name is in the title, so he's got to win. But man, it's like Endo like really plays the back and forth here extremely well, to the point where I think that this the final fight between Meguru and Takashi's is arguably the best fight in the series, more so than Meguru's fight against Kiji Mitsuha, which he won in a decision, like barely, but but seeing like how things turn out against him, like because it's basically cause it's more played against him, like it's more when Meguru and Takashi are fighting, it's not really a fight against like who's stronger. It's more like the idea like whose ideology is right. Is Meguru's ideology about like do I want to like play this, compete in like Shuto in MMA to have fun? Is that the right agenda, or is Takashi's agenda like being strong or not having the like the like the ability to lose against someone like who like you ultimately respected? Maybe that's kind of a retcon, but Takashi, it's like he gives some signs that he thoroughly respects Meguru. It's like in his abilities, like to the point where he smiles. It's like and his in towards the end of the match, and his coach basically says, hey, you're smiling. It's like you're gonna lose. That's like the first time that you're gonna like get your ass kicked right there. But when Meguru and Takashi like talk like in like a private fishing like scene after the match, later after the match, it's like you get the feeling that they've kind of like reached their own kind of like understanding about who's right. It's like it's I mean like on one hand you kind of figure like that there's gonna be like a oh like I was right and you were wrong. It's like and you get the feeling that hey it's like they were kind of both right in the end, and ultimately that's kind of like leaves me feeling that man it's like I would love to see like a movie like about this, like like 10 years later, like when like Takashi is like gone to left Japan undefeated and is like fighting in America, and then comes back to Japan to like like deal with like his like like any kind of like lingering doubts about his strength with Meguru, but overall I think that the end of the series wraps things up pretty well, and it also does a good job of like settling the Meguru Maki romantic entanglement as well, to the point where it treats like that whole thing as being a like as a complete joke, and I kind of appreciate that because I mean like hey Myron, it's like remember how like in Slam Dunk how Sakuragi's like his romantic entanglements are just kind of like like pass off as kind of like hey like I like you and I'm going to go and like win this game,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that's kind of what's treated here, but it's also given the added bonus of a final chapter where Maki is talking to her girlfriends about this, and they're just basically like giving her some thoroughly filthy talk about like hey this is how you like deal with having a virgin as a boyfriend and all, and it's like man it's like this is rude and all, but like at the same time this is like after what I've read of like like Endo's talk about sex in Eden, it's like it lines up thoroughly, and there's also like a nice two chapter arc about that focuses on one of the side characters, Momoko, and her compatriots in Fighters Brew, like dealing with some like a dealing with another like gotten challenged by some other like by rival gym, and that was fun. Like Momoko is like she's like a side character to the series, and like she's really good at it's like at fighting, but at the same time she's not she has no stamina as well. It's like to the point where like it's like if you're like one of the high points of the series I think is like when she throws a character like Kate, a Canadian who's like 3 times her weight. It's like, and you're trying to like, God damn, she pulled this off. It's like I gotta give props to that. But at the same time, it's kind of like she does this at the expense of like hey, like when she has no stamina for the next match, and she gets her ass handed to her because she has to tap out at the end. But this is just kind of like a side story to the like to the to the main story, which is Meguru, and I really enjoyed it. It's like it's rare that you get to see a series like like fighting series are like a dime a dozen like in manga, but like to see a series that is like positioned like with the level of realism that Meguru displays. It's like it's it's like I did you do not get that like really at all, and I appreciate that. And also like even then when Endo like dials back on like like the fighting to like show why why Takashi is like like fighting like for strength more than anything else. It's like that works well because he's a very solid straightforward like storyteller as well. It's like I was not expecting a guy who did a hard science fiction series to give us really thoroughly grounded martial arts series like as a follow up, but he did. And I really enjoyed it, and I would really like to see like what he does next, as far as what like whatever he's like, whether it's gonna be science fiction or martial arts or whatever. Because after doing like what I've seen of Eden so far, and God damn it, Dark Horse, if you're not gonna publish the next 4 volumes, the final 4 volumes, just tell us so we can move on. But kudos to Kodansha for actually delivering all 19 volumes of All Rounder Meguru. And it's like I understand that All Rounder Meguru may not be like a very flashy, very stylish martial arts series, but as far as like delivering us a good like realistic martial arts series, I think it does it very well, and I also think that it does a good job of like addressing its main characters like motivations, like as far as like why they're doing what they're doing as well.
Now,
So
now, to your knowledge, has this been adapted to an anime or talks about adaptation?
nope, and like I would be very surprised if it did. If it does get like an anime adaptation,
Why is that?
well, just because it's like it's not very flashy. It's like it's. I mean, like, I think it's very well suited for being a anime adaptation. Maybe even like a good a solid 3D CG adaptation,
Hmm.
because I think that like the characters like in terms of like whenever like you break away from the fighting to have the characters talk about why the character this character is doing is really impressive. I think the series does that really well, but at the same time though it kind of has. I don't think that it's like I said, it doesn't have like the same level of flash that you get from like your average like Shonen Jump series as well. It's like sure, I mean we talked about like this in the same language as Slam Dunk, but um when was the last like good realistic sports anime that addressed this thing that came up, I guess, that got a good anime adaptation?
Well,
I can't remember because like I think Kokoro no Basket, which is kind of like modern slam dunk, like that's the last one I started getting into. But even like slam dunk and Kokoro no Basket had a little bit of flash. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
and then there was that there was the Prince of Tennis. What was that, the football one, like Eye Shield?
Actually, 2021,
Thank
right?
you, Eye Shield
Yeah, that
2021.
was what Yusuke Murata did before he did One Punch Man.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, I mean, it's like, there's been quite a bit of sports anime, but when you say, like, not, that this series doesn't have the flash, like the ones I'm describing, I believe do have that little bit of flash. And when it comes to fighting anime, like one that I got into recently, which is airing on Netflix, is uh, uh, Ashura. Ashura.
King on Ashura.
Thank you, Kengan Ashura, and like that's more like a blood sport style kind of like almost close to Tekken style anime. And even there, like it is super flashy because there is a character in that series where his background is MMA, and when he does like a lot of the counters and arm bars and everything like that, it even goes into like some type of like super like type of flashiness as he's maneuvering around. And so like not saying like the anime of Meguru needs to do this, but I mean they could still kind of with the transitioning of like certain holds and mounts and things like that. I mean, they don't necessarily need to add like flashy, you know, uh, seizure inducing like colors and flashiness, but they could still make it stylistic to where it's like it 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 visualizes the technicality of those moves or those transitions.
Yes, I get what you're saying right there. It's like I think like yeah, I'd like to see that, but at the same time, it's kind of like okay, so maybe we'll see this as an anime, or maybe like we'll see this as like a live action series.
It just depends on how the execution of it goes, and I think that's kind of key as well.
Of
They can make
course.
anything interesting, I think. So, but yeah, it's just what they're going to do with it and how much they decide to just change some of the story, which is possible, but you never know.
I mean,
Yeah, it's like
because the story, at least that I get from Volume One, I mean, it's there's drama in there too, and I like I like dramatic, more realistic, anime storylines too. And I think there, at least so far from what I read, I think there is a good story in there to where I would like to see a beautifully animated series about this.
yeah, it's like I think that like maybe you can give this like a nice like CG animated series, or maybe even like a live action series. It's like as well because like it's like the series is like very well grounded in like the realism, like as far as like what like what regular people can do like in terms of like martial arts.
Hmm.
Yeah, because like I would love to see like see like an anime adaptation of this, or even a live action adaptation of this. And to be honest, like if they did do this, and if Kodansha did decide to republish this series, like physically, it's like as a result of like a successful like live action or anime adaptation, then I would rebuy it because I that's how much I like this series.
And that would be dope to do live action because Fighters Brew could be like the Cobra Kai of Netflix.
Yeah, well, it kind of already is. Like, I think isn't like Netflix already doing Cobra Kai? They've got the rights to Cobra Kai right
They,
now.
they got the rights to Cobra Kai, but then it's like seeing kind of envisioning like how Cobra Kai the series is like a live action series of Meguru and Fighters Brew kind of being like that that underdog gym trying to rise to the ranks of the amateur MMA division. Like I think that would work as a live action series as well too.
Yeah, it's like I'd like to see that as well. Like I like to see like any adaptation of Meguru, just because I think that like the series deserves like more like attention than it's getting right now. But then again, it's like it got enough attention. I applaud Kodansha USA's like dedication to publishing the series to its end. Which hey, Dark Horse, I'm still waiting for like word on when we're gonna see the end of Meguru or end of Eden. It's like or whether or not you're actually going to do the end of that series. So,
And I'm sorry, I think you mentioned this earlier in the conversation. Like I remember you mentioning the aughts, but when did this series release and when did it finally end?
oh, it's like it ended. I don't. It ended. It started in the aughts, I believe, because like it's 19 volumes,
Hmm.
and I believe it ended maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. It's like I don't actually have like the dates off the top of my on hand right now, but because but I think that like Kodansha maybe like decided to do like Meguru because like Dark Horse had established maybe kind of a potential audience for for mangaka Hiroki Endo's work with Eden and his it's like and his like short stories Tenpenshu. But as far as like actually like finishing them, well, it's like like kudos to Kodansha for actually doing this, but Dark Horse, oh man, it's like why you gotta let me down after all this time, man. It's like ah, it's like I would like at least like to know. It's like, are you gonna like finish it, or are you just gonna like just not gonna do it, like or after all this time? It's like I just want to know like when can I just sit back and read the scanlations of like the last 4 volumes without guilt and all.
Hey, if there's one thing that I can attest to, from my time communicating with Nintendo and at times Xbox, strong letters and strong emails can help push things along.
That's a good point. Good point right there. It's like I should do that, and I should also just like asset of Dark Horse like next time I see them at a convention as well.
And
Once these conventions start up again.
it'd be super annoying. Like do it like once a month.
Yeah, it's like I get that. I mean, that may not be like how I roll, but I can definitely understand that right there.
Hey, I did that for Asura's Wrath, to have that backwards compatible on Xbox, and sure enough, like it got. Not saying it was me, but a lot of fans were clamoring for that. But I would always send emails to Xbox and their suggestions, like, "Hey, what's up with that Asura's Wrath backwards compat? Hey, next month, hey, when we gonna get that backwards compat?" And I think the last like backwards compatible update they did before focusing on Xbox Series X, Asura's Wrath was part of that. And I was like, sweet, thank you. And I sent like a thank you email, so.
You got a point there, man. It's like I guess I should try to do that then.
Yep. And it's like, man, let's just finish this so we can stop. Let's finish this series so we can stop getting these damn letters.
Yeah.
So, Jason, what's your final verdict on this one?
Oh, I think you should absolutely buy it. It's like
Yeah.
I think that it may not have like the flash that like you expect from like a it's like from like a manga martial arts series, but I think that the fact that it's a solid, realistic depiction of mixed martial arts with with solid characterization of of the cast. It's like it's I think that it's something that will get your attention. It's like regardless, it's just like you need to like give it a chance in order to win you over.
Cool. So you know what you're going to be talking about next time.
Next time I'm gonna talk. I haven't talked to him about yet, but I'm sure Rob is going to be willing to talk to me about the latest X-Men event, Ten of Swords or X of Swords. It's like depending on how you view things. Because hey, it's like we are like huge fans of X-Men around here. So it's like as far as what the next big X-Men crossover is, it's like we're gonna be here to talk about it.
All right. Well, we'll catch you next time on Comic Picks by the Glug.
All right, laters.
Have a good one.
Mm-hmm.